In 1984, Soviet defector and former KGB operative Yuri Besmenov gave an interview where he warned America that the communist Soviet Union had a long-term plan to defeat America through something called ideological subversion or psychological warfare. This was in 1984, people. And the first step of this plan, of the Marxist long-term plan to defeat America, the first step was called demoralization. Now, he warned that this stage of the process takes a minimum of 15 to 20 years, and the goal is to re-educate an entire generation to essentially destroy every value that we hold dear as a people, as a country, and to replace it with something new through a process of re-education. Now, the demoralization of America is nearly complete. I want to just read this headline of this article. This is just a snapshot of the demoralization of America, the state of it today. Satan impregnates woman, has Antichrist's daughter in new Disney-distributed FX animated series Little Demon. Now, like I said, this is just a snapshot of the demoralization of America and the depth of America's cultural decline. And you've seen it. We all know the attack on God and Christian culture in America has become more and more blatant over the years. Now, if you want to really pinpoint it back to a certain point in history, I think this is the point in history that we can really look at and say, when did the culture of America really start to decline? And I think it was the early 60s. Christians really started losing ground in the culture war massively when the Supreme Court ruled that school-sponsored prayer was unconstitutional. That was back in 1962. And that came at the start of the counterculture movement. And over the next couple of decades, really, we saw a rapid decline in our culture, from the free love movement to the rise of satanic imagery and satanic worship in music and in pop culture. We saw Roe v. Wade in 1973. We've seen the leftist takeover of our educational system and also of the media. We've seen a rise in atheism. I mean, really, the list just goes on and on. The cultural decline only becomes more exponential as time goes on. We covered this, the first time we covered this was a couple years ago, but witches now outnumber Presbyterians in the United States. And that is due in no small part to shows like the one that I talked about, this Little Demon show, which openly seeks to normalize paganism. That is a stated goal of what they want to do in this animated series. We've also seen the exploding LGBT agenda fueled by postmodern philosophy and how it's catapulting an entire generation into a fog of confusion and self-harm. And this destructive movement, it's leading people to mutilate themselves while society applauds them. And not only applauds them, stifles anyone who disagrees. Here's just one example. Here's one headline. Newsom makes California sanctuary state for transgender children and their families. This is what the article says. Effective January 1st of next year, the measure is designed to shield trans youth under the age of 18 and their families from criminal prosecution if they travel to the Golden State to obtain gender-affirming health care, which can include puberty blockers, hormones, and surgery. And this crazy ideology has even infiltrated institutions like our military. Here's another headline. Air Force Academy defends telling cadets to replace mom and dad with gender-neutral language. This is all contributing to the demoralization of America. And now it is even becoming illegal in our country to practice your faith if you work in certain career fields. Let's just look at one. Let's look at healthcare as an example. Here's another article. Appeals court upholds Washington's conversion therapy ban and rules against Christian therapists. And this is what the article says. A federal appeals court unanimously upheld a Washington state law prohibiting LGBT conversion therapy on minors, rejecting a Christian therapist's claims that the ban violated his free speech rights to counsel patients with unwanted same-sex attraction. Circuit Judge Ronald Gold authored the panel opinion, stating that the law, quote, does not violate the First or 14th Amendments because the state has the power to regulate medical practices. Quote, states do not lose the power to regulate the safety of medical treatments performed under the authority of a state license merely because those treatments are implemented through speech rather than through the scalpel. So, we live in a country that is making it illegal for psychiatrists to help patients who are struggling with same-sex attraction or who are struggling even with gender dysphoria. The state is saying, no, you must affirm those lifestyles. You must affirm those sins. You cannot help those patients break free from those unwanted desires. Like I said, this is the demoralization of America. Our founders were Christians. And there has been for several decades now a concerted effort by the revisionists to get rid of that part of our history, to say, no, they weren't Christians, they were deists, or they were this, or they were that. But when you look at the evidence, when you look at the quotes of the things that our founders said and did, the things that they voted for and wrote, they were Christians. And here's just one very important quote from John Adams, one of our founders, the second president of our country. He said this, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. That's a bold statement. When people talk about the separation of church and state, they make it seem like that nobody in government should ever have any kind of religious sentiment or religious affiliation. But here's one of the founders of our country saying this Constitution was not made for just anyone. It was made for a moral and religious people. And it can't govern any other kind of people. Not only was our country founded on Christian principles, on Christian ideals, and not only was it built by an almost entirely Christian population, but our country was built only to succeed in a Christian nation. The ultimate destruction of our country, when it comes, will be due to nothing more or nothing less than its demoralization. It will be because we have ceased to be a Christian people.